All right. Good afternoon. A good first day. It's always a reminder of the first day out that we've got a lot of work to do, and that's why we have training camp. Questions?
What do you try to get out of the first day? What are you looking for?
You want to see the upperclassmen, the guys in your program, practicing at the tempo that we expect here, and I thought we did that. And we got a lot of young guys now who are really experiencing it for the first time, and they have to learn how to practice like college football players, and it's probably the longest, most intense practice they've ever gone through. But now they've gone through it, so tomorrow they got to be better at it.
Anything flash at the quarterback play?
No, and I don't know that I'll make a comment on it really for quite a few days. And I want to let them play. I want to let them build a body of work, see how they progress. Smart guy told me one time, players get better when they get coached, and this is the time of year we really get to coach them, and we have their full attention. So now we'll have an opportunity to see how they progress through this first week.
Okay, what kind of opportunities ahead of some of the young cornerbacks? The second-year guys, Wharton, Boggs, first-year guy, Austin, but he was at least here in spring.
Yeah, I think there's opportunity for all those guys, and the nature of offensive football these days, with all the spread offenses, you're playing so much of the game in nickel and dime personnel. You need 6, 7 defensive backs a game really just to play the game nowadays. So there's a lot of opportunity for those guys, and the more flexibility, the more they can do, the more valuable they are, and the more they'll play.
Coach, any word on Quan Lewis yet?
No.
Coach Crew's been really outspoken about his Rose Bowl goals for the team this season. Is everyone else on the same page in the locker room? Are you confident that you can get them on that page by the end of this camp?
Our expectation is to be 1-0 each week. If we do a good enough job doing that, we'll have an opportunity to play in a great bowl game. That to me, now is not this time of year is time to focus on today. The off season, you set your goals. When you're working out by yourself in the summer and you're thinking about those things, that's great. I think those things drive you through the off season. But now the process has to be on being 1-0. I thought we did a good job today. I'm anxious to see it on film. I want to see how well we actually did, and then our focus goes to tomorrow.
How much mixing and matching do you do on the offensive line early in camp? Do you try to have it settled, or do you want to set your line?
Well, not as much as we did in the spring, and we even settled that down a little bit towards the end of spring. But we still have some guys that we're looking at in a couple spots to make sure we get the best 5 out there. And I think, just looking at that group, could it end up being 5 starters that start every game this year and play the whole game? It could. It's probably more likely to play about 7 guys.
God, the last time most of us saw Gadosi, he had a pretty big spring. How satisfied are you with what he did between now and today? Then and today.
He looked good day one. Yeah, I want to see him. Like spring, I want to see him put these days back to back to back, and he did that in the spring. And again, I got to look at it on film, but I didn't see anything out here that led me to believe he went the other way.
Quinzel Lambert, what have you seen from him this offseason? What did you see today?
I'm going to hold off any comments on alignment until we put the pads on. I think it's easy to show something one way or the other, when there's no pads on. And I think when we get the pads on day 3, day 4, and then full pads day 5, we'll know a lot more about how Quinzel's offseason was.
How about just what you're asking him to do this year with a couple different roles? How can he handle that?
Sure. Yeah. From a leadership standpoint, Quinzel does a great job. From being unselfish, being a team first guy, he does a great job. Quinzel's always been the player who. He says, Coach, put me wherever is best for the team, and that's where I'll play. And he can play R, he can play E, he can play nose, he can play 3 technique, he can play any of those positions up front. We haven't asked him to play all men, but he can play them all. And he's going to have a role in our defense. What that is right now, I don't know that I could say that after day 1.
There's going to be a lot of attention on Leonte. Do you want to have one of those guys be a number 2 and kind of emerge as number 2?
I think there was a lot of attention on Leonte last year. I don't think that'll be anything new for us. When you have a player like that, whether it's Leonte, whether it's Brandon Coleman, Mohamed Sanu, Kenny Britt, any of those guys, there's always going to be a lot of attention. And I think the first thing it does is it certainly elevates the guys around him, because he's taking defenders away from their side of the field. But the more dynamic those playmakers can be, I remember having Kenny Britt over 1,000 yards, Tyquan Hunters over 1,000 yards, and then whatever Timmy Brown had, because Timmy was a very productive player that year as well. So it can make you explosive on offense as those other players emerge.
How about seeing PJ back on the practice field?
Oh, it makes me feel good. Yeah, it makes me feel good. It was great to see him out there in Indy, and I thought he ran around well. And I got some questions yesterday about what he would be like, and I didn't see any tentativeness whatsoever. I thought he looked great out there.
Coach, would you ever talk to Leonte about the quarterback scenario? Try to gauge his reaction or his feedback as to how the quarterbacks are doing and what he thinks of their performance?
No, I think the head coach needs to ultimately make that decision.
Well, no, I know. Yeah, I just didn't know any conversation at all or any kind of feedback.
No, we're all at the practices. We all watch the film, and I think what I'll do is I'm going to certainly get a feel for who's going to win that locker room. I've I've said that before. But ultimately, those decisions are made by the coaching staff, and really the final decision made by me.
How do you even determine that? Do you talk to some of your leaders to see what quarterbacks are winning the locker room, or is that just something you observe?
No, it's all observing. I think we're around the team so much right now in training camp, and nobody's leaving to go to class, nobody's leaving to go home on the weekend. Everybody's here for 4 weeks, so we're going to know that. And when I say win the locker room, it's not a situation where one guy wins it and one guy loses it. I just think ultimately you get a feel for who the team feels is the first team guy as well. But as the head coach, you got to make the decision as who gives us the best opportunity to be 1-0.
Coach, can you talk about Lumpkin's leadership now that you're going to be rotating 5-7 guys on the line? How important is it for him and to have a stalwart?
Yeah, the most important thing is that he plays at a high level. That's the most important. That guy plays left tackle. Very important to the offense, very important to the quarterback. And to have a guy there be a 3-year starter, that's a good place to start. But the leadership aspect comes in play in terms of elevating the other players around him every day in practice, pushing the other guys as an individual, watching film with the younger players when the coaches can't be there. Those are all things that Keith has done, and will make him a leader in that position group.
Cal, depth chart, I know not to read too much into it, but there's a lot of co-starters. Is this maybe as much competition for starting jobs or even backup jobs as you can remember in your couple years?
Yeah, I see it as a good thing. I think it's more a function of depth than anything else. And it's exciting when I did that when I was here the other day. It was exciting for me to look at it like that because I've said to you guys before, you guys get a little more fixated in who plays the first play of the game than I do. And then again, I know it's important and the players want to play the first play, but ultimately if a guy's playing 40 to 50% of the game, that guy's a starter in terms of how I see it. But it was exciting for me to look at that depth chart, see how many guys are competing for so many positions, because it makes me feel like we're going to have a lot of contributors.
Didn't see any guys on the bikes during practice. I mean, everyone passed the conditioning test?
We no guys on the bikes today because we had a couple guys in the training room. So we do have some guys conditioning in the training, but it's really more because they're not 100% yet. Have 2 more questions?
Coach, you talk about PJ Bunch having back for his first practice. How is he going to play a leadership role? We talked about that a lot too, with all the different running backs that you had who stepped up last year.
That room, PJ does a great job. He's the older presence in that room for sure. But what I think makes that room unique is how unselfish those players are, how supportive they are of each other at a position where generally only one of them plays at a time. We're gonna do some things this training camp, and we'll see if all those guys are healthy. We're gonna have to find ways to get them on the field. That's for sure. It'll make us better. But I think the most important thing he does is show those younger players how not only you could be a really productive player and really be an unselfish player, be a team first guy.
Coach Goodwin flashed a bunch with a few runs he got to the second level today. Can you talk about his performance, not just in the spring, but leading up to this point of your first day? What did you see from him today?
Justin's had a great offseason. He had a great spring. He certainly could have been. He certainly was considered for some of those awards we gave out in the spring. He had a great summer, and I think it showed today. He's a productive player for us, and he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. He's gonna have a role for us on offense.
Thanks, guys.
All right.